Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, let's get to the topic of the day. And it's a topic that, frankly, I've talked about a ton over the last couple weeks here, both on the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, on this YouTube channel. And I'll just say this really quickly. This will just be a quick reaction. I will have full, kind of a longer reaction on Monday's episode of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. But the topic is the recruitment of Jalen Duren, one of the top high school basketball players in the country. And as I've said many times, he is a player that technically up through this week was a member of the class of 2022, meaning he was going into his senior year. But it was long expected that he was going to reclassify into 2021 and play somewhere other than high school basketball this coming fall. And so the question became, is he going to go to college? Eventually got down to 3 college options, Miami, Memphis, and Kentucky. Or would he choose a professional route? On Friday, we finally get that answer as Jalen Duren, the number 1 high school player in America, officially announces he's going to reclassify, officially announces that he is a member of the high school class of 2021, and he announces that he is going to play at Memphis. So shout out Memphis fans, shout out Jalen Duren, shout out his family. Congratulations to Memphis on getting the top player in the high school class of 2022 to reclassify, play in 2021, which means he will be enrolling here any day now, and he will be playing college basketball next season. First of all, just looking back on this, I'll just say point blank, this is kind of one of the wilder recruitments that I can remember in a while, just from the perspective that I think it was about 2.5 months ago. I don't think anybody thought that he was, 1, going to reclassify, or 2, even play college basketball. Now, I know some of that has to do with the fact that basically very limited media was on the road and available to interview these guys and talk to these guys over the last 1.5 years because of COVID. Coaches weren't available to go on the road and evaluate these guys, and there's just been weird communication through Zoom, and you don't really have a feel for what people are doing. But it wasn't really until June at the Pangos All-American Camp that you realized, wait a second now, this kid may seriously consider playing college basketball, and he may seriously consider doing it as early as 2021. Shout out to my buddy Jack Pilgrim, Kentucky Sports Radio. He was the first one to get that Jalen Duren was visiting those 3 campuses, Miami, Kentucky, and Memphis. He did that obviously in late June, early July, and from there it became pretty apparent that he wanted to certainly move up his graduation date and potentially play college basketball this season. I believe it was Adam Zagoria, the first one that officially put out that he could reclassify. I know even before Adam Zagoria put that report out, and this is no disrespect to Adam, but that, I had said on the podcast this was something that was a little bit of a buzz at Pangos All-American Camp. So in the span of about, the last 2 months, we go from thinking he's a member of the class of 2022, he probably will never play college basketball and go to the G League, and instead we find out that he's not only playing college basketball but playing this year. And from there, the recruitment was fascinating. I mean, for months, it seemed like Miami had the edge because of the family ties. Obviously, DJ Irving, who was his high school coach, his AAU coach, was now at the University of Miami. You think they're a favorite. For a minute, it feels like Kentucky might have an edge. I had heard whispers that the G League had really made moves over the last couple weeks, but instead it ends up being Memphis for really a number of different reasons. I think, first of all, the NBA ties do matter. You can criticize Penny Hardaway because he hasn't done this. You can criticize Penny Hardaway because he hasn't done that. Certainly his resume is not as extensive as John Calipari's. But this was a guy that played in the NBA, was an all-star, competed at the highest level, and oh, by the way, brought in Larry Brown as an assistant coach this offseason. You can criticize Penny Hardaway for a lot of things, but there is no coach anywhere that is currently coaching basketball, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, that is more respected than Larry Brown. There is no doubt that even in a professional setting, whether it was the G League, overseas, Overtime Elite, you're not going to get better coaching in any professional setting than you will from Larry Brown at Memphis. And so I do think that mattered, as well as Penny Hardaway's background within the NBA. The fact that they may bring in Rasheed Wallace, a former all-star big man in the NBA, who, oh, by the way, is a guy that kind of played in the way that Jalen Duren wants to play, could stretch the floor, could hit threes, could bang down low, could kind of do all of that. I think all of that mattered. The other part, name, image, likeness certainly played a role in this. And, I know everybody that didn't get this kid and you read social media and all that, oh, it's so obvious that, the kid just went to the highest bidder. I don't necessarily believe that's true. I do think that the Larry Brown NBA stuff really did matter to him, but I also don't think that you could sit here and say that NIL played no role in this decision at all. I thought it was really interesting. I actually kind of, believe it or not, tuned into a little Memphis sports talk radio here over the last couple days just to kind of see what the local perspective was. I pulled up the streams and the podcast and stuff, and I thought that the hosts were very transparent about, Memphis has a great relationship with FedEx. They have a great relationship with a lot of big businesses in this town, and those businesses are willing to help Memphis athletics get players like Jalen Duren. And so when I look at this commitment, I think the pro aspect of it is certainly part of it, and I think name, image, likeness is part of it as well. In terms of the commitment itself, I have two real quick thoughts on this in terms of the bigger picture of life in general. First of all, the life in general, basketball in general, First of all, we'll get to Memphis in a minute because there is a lot of pressure on Penny Hardaway. But first of all, I would say this is a big loss for the G League. And I think if anybody has any oversight in the G League, I know I said a few weeks ago, Jason Hart, a friend of mine or a guy that I respect, I don't know if he's a friend, but a guy that I respect who's coached at USC forever, just took over that program as the head coach. But, in terms of the oversight, Sharif Abdur-Rahim runs it. Rod Strickland is the main recruiter. I think you got to say this is a failure, and I think so far there's got to be people that are making decisions asking, what are we doing wrong, and is it worth it? This was supposed to be the pathway for elite high school players, and instead, most of them are choosing the college option. Last year in the college game, Jalen Suggs, we know, had an opportunity to go play in the G League. Evan Mobley had an opportunity to play in the G League. Both of them passed. Both of them were stars in the NCAA tournament. The late Terrence Clark, unfortunately, we know, had an opportunity to go to that G League program. Zaire Williams, who went to Stanford. The 2021 class, you hear stories. You don't know what was official and what wasn't, but you believe that Paolo Banchero, the number one player, number two player who's headed to Duke, had that opportunity, that Chet Holmgren had that opportunity, and they're all choosing college basketball. And so now to go to the class of 2022, a kid that obviously came to 2021, and he still chooses Memphis over the G League, I think it's a big L for the G League. And I do think they probably are starting to have to reconsider how they handle that program, what they're doing, what their recruiting pitch is, because it simply isn't working. The bottom line is they are not getting the best players, and I think the best players are being really smart about the decision-making process. I think it's really hard to see the G League over the last couple months. They were basically invisible. Jalen Green committed to the program and then basically disappeared for a year. And don't tell me they were on ESPN this and they were on YouTube and all this. I get all that, but the bottom line is Cade Cunningham was on national TV 40 times this past season. He was on ESPN, ESPN2, CBS, Fox, whatever. He was on national TV. Jalen Suggs, you can't tell me that NCAA tournament did not help him. You can't tell me that Evan Mobley, from an exposure perspective, the NCAA tournament did not help him. The fact that outside of Jalen Green, basically all of those guys got drafted lower than they were expected to, I think hurts that program as well. And I said it from the beginning. I said, I truly believe if I was a parent, I don't know that I would send my kids to the G League program, because all you're going to be doing is basically putting your kid in a situation where he's evaluated and questioned and poked and prodded by the NBA every single day of the week. And so when I look at that G League program, I sit there and say, I'd rather go to college, because if you go to Kentucky, if you go to Memphis, if you go to Michigan, you go through the NBA draft process, John Calipari is going to go to bat for you. Juwan Howard, Penny Hardaway, Tom Izzo, Mike Krzyzewski, Mick Cronin, whoever, they're going to go to bat for you if you come play for them for a year, whereas opposed if you're in that G League program, you're being evaluated every single day by NBA personnel, and for 3 of the 4 kids in that program, it did not work out well. Yes, Jalen Green went number 2 overall, but you know what? Jonathan Kuminga was a potential top 2, top 3 pick going into the year. He ends up going number 7. Isaiah Todd was a projected lottery pick. He goes in the second round. Daishen Nix, who was a projected lottery pick, doesn't get drafted at all. So I think a lot of these kids are smartening up and saying this G League pathway program isn't all it was cracked up to be. Beyond that, what I would say in terms of the basketball perspective, this certainly makes Memphis interesting. And if you missed it, I talked about the possibility of Jalen Duren and Amani Bates teaming up. I encourage you to go back and listen to that. But in terms of Memphis in 2021, 2022, well, I'll tell you this. Penny Hardaway talked about wanting all the smoke 2 years ago, and in his defense, James Wiseman gets suspended and leaves the program. DJ Jeffries gets hurt. Well, Penny Hardaway is about to get all the smoke this year because I think when you look at this, it squarely puts a target on Memphis's back, and this is now NCAA tournament or bust for Penny. There are no excuses. Jalen Duren is going to be a top 5 pick. There's the possibility that you're bringing in Amani Bates, but even without Amani Bates in the fold here, Memphis is a team. It is now Penny Hardaway's 4th year. They're all his players, a lot of highly touted recruits. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, but there are no more excuses. Year 1, it was Tubby Smith's players. Year 2, you have James Wiseman again, but he gets suspended and leaves the program. DJ Jeffries gets hurt. This past year, I will defend Penny Hardaway. I thought they were one of the 68 best teams in college basketball by the end of the season, but they simply had not taken care of business early, took some bad losses early, and unfortunately they couldn't make up for it late. Played Houston right down to the wire twice in the final week of the season. Win one of those games, you're probably in the NCAA tournament. But with this decision, even outside of the possibility that Amani Bates is going there, and I'm hearing increasingly that might happen, even without this decision, it is officially go time at Memphis. There are no more excuses. You have a team that should start the season in the top 25 somewhere, and you got to deliver. But independent of whether Memphis, wins the national title, gets to the tournament, whatever, this is a great day for college basketball, and this is a great day to be a Memphis Tiger. We can worry about how all the puzzle pieces fit, how it's going to work, how it's not, all that stuff down the road. Right now, they have a commitment from one of the top high school players in the country, regardless of class. He is now in 2021. Jalen Duren is a Memphis Tiger. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor. Go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also find me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. Find me on Instagram at Aaron Torres Pod. And finally, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, as I will have even more reaction to this news on Monday's show.